Om Tat Sat, Miraji. Can you hear me okay? Please let me know if the audio is good. Okay. We had to put a Wi-Fi extender so that I could live stream. So we figured out the problem. Om Tat Sat, Shobna Ji. Thank you for being here. Divine blessings to everyone. Okay, welcome to Yoga Vasishta, Thursday set song. And we'll open up with our beginning mantras. And my apologies for the way I look. I'll explain in a minute what's going on. Okay. Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamasya Dilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Tragunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Adorations to the Divine Preceptor, who is the bliss of Brahman, the giver of supreme joy, the embodiment of pure consciousness, beyond the pairs of opposites, vast like the ether, infinite, eternal, beyond all modifications. To that divine Guru I offer my adorations. Om Shri Guruve Namaha. Jaya Ganesha, Jaya Ganesha, Jaya Ganesha, Pahimam. Shri Ganesha, Shri Ganesha, Shri Ganesha, Rakshamam. Jaya Saraswati, Jaya Saraswati, Jaya Saraswati, Pahimam. Shri Saraswati, Shri Saraswati, Shri Saraswati, Rakshamam. Jaya Shri Lakshmi, Jaya Shri Lakshmi, Jaya Shri Lakshmi, Pahimam. Jaya Shri Lakshmi, Jaya Shri Lakshmi, Jaya Shri Lakshmi, Rakshamam. Jaya Guru, Shiva Guru, Hari Guru Ram. Jagadaguru, Paramaguru, Sadguru Sham. Adi Guru, Advait Guru, Ananda Guru Om. Chitta Guru, Chidgana Guru, Chinmaya Guru Om. Om Tat Sat, Om Tat Sat, Om Tat Sat, Om. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om. Thank you, Shobna Ji. Yes, I'm feeling a bit better. Om Tat Sat, Guru Ma, divine blessings. I wanted to start off, kind of give it a little bit of an explanation for my appearance and what's hanging off of my head right now. I have a EEG cap on my head, and so there's wires coming out of the back of my head. So if you see me like pulling and adjusting on things, that's why. They're figuring out why I'm having seizures. And so I'm also sitting right next to a camera, and my neurologist is watching me. So my neurologist is getting some satsang tonight too. Even though they can't hear me, they can see me. So that is why I look kind of disheveled, and I have stuff on my head, and I look kind of funny. But that's okay. So I just wanted to let people know, like, that's what's hanging out of the back of my head right now. But I'm okay. Everything is going as it should, and I actually get it taken out and taken off of me in the morning tomorrow. So then it'll be back to normal. So I just wanted to give an explanation on my appearance right now. So please excuse the disheveled look. I wanted to start this evening with a section from Guruji's book that he published, The Art of Spiritual Living. And this is from chapter 10. I chose adversity and prosperity because it is something that applies kind of right now to what I'm going through. And that was a very big way of how Guruji helped me with things over the past few years, is how to handle adversity and prosperity and learning equanimity of the mind and keeping a balanced mind throughout whatever comes our way during life and what happens. And one of my challenges was physical health and handling the adversities and the challenges that came along with it. So Guruji says, every adversity is an opportunity to intensify your spiritual practice. Prosperity is a wonderful opportunity to count your blessings, thank God, and share it with others. Adversity and prosperity both alternate in our lives. This experience is like climbing a mountain. Adversity is like going uphill and prosperity downhill. During adversity, every step seems exhausting, but somehow we persist and reach the top. During prosperity, we seem overjoyed since very little effort is required to go downhill. However, if we are not cautious, we can quickly lose control and have an accident. So, control and caution are required under both conditions. Maintain equanimity of mind under both conditions. This cycle is inevitable, so learn to adapt and adjust. Always have a positive outlook. Equanimity, the essence of spirituality, should be practiced every day. How can we do that? By accepting both adversity and prosperity with equal grace. Normally, most people want only prosperity, but then grumble or complain when adversity strikes. Yet, it is during adversity that we introspect and we grow. Both prosperity and adversity are transient. We should remember the powerful saying, "This too shall pass away." When we maintain an even keel, we are practicing equanimity. The key is not to be overly elated during prosperity or overly dejected during adversity. Practicing equanimity is indeed a high spiritual practice. So I found that a good one. Also because it seems applicable to a lot of the things going on in the world right now, and trying to keep an even keel, like a balanced mind through the challenges, no matter where people are located, the challenges that are being faced in politics or environmental challenges. There's a lot going on. And that can really consume the mind and cause a lot of stress and anxiety, and then all that stress and anxiety manifests and just churns in the body and then causes inflammation and weakens the immune system. And so it's really important to try to keep a balanced mind during all events that are happening. And so I feel like for me, with this on my head, I've had to have it for 3 days, and the first day was extremely painful and uncomfortable with all the leads are super glued to my head, and then they had to wrap my head really tight, and so there was a lot of pressure, and so a lot of pain. And then during it, a lot of like frustration came up, just being frustrated with the situation, and then it's really itchy and I can't take it off to scratch my head. And so that's really frustrating. And then not being able to bathe properly has been frustrating. And so trying to stay balanced and focused during everything. And so making sure in the morning I'm still doing scripture studies, doing japa and meditations and focused breathing, and just applying the different practices that we have been learning about. And so that's where the practicality of our scriptures comes into play, is applying what we learn to situations that we go through. And then we are able to see our growth in how we handle that situation compared to maybe 6 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago. So this evening's satsang, we finished the section on dispassion. And so we're actually on a whole new area of book 1. We're on Mumukshu, Vyavahara, Prakarana. And so once again, for those who don't have the physical copy, you can purchase it on yrf.org. And there's 2 volumes of this, so this is volume 1. So Mumukshu can translate to the seeker of truth, or the seeker of liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Vyavahara can be defined as like the activity or the behavior of someone, and then Prakarana means section. And so altogether, it means the section of the activity or behavior of a seeker of truth. And what we'll read tonight is more along the lines of not a back and forth dialogue, how it had been. It backtracks into a story. So I wanted to let you know about that, so you don't get confused on like where Lord Rama kind of went during this. So section 1, Sri Shuka goes to King Janaka. After listening to the words of dispassion expressed by Sri Ramachandra, great sage Vishwamitra, delighted to find such an excellent aspirant, responded saying, "O Ramachandra, you are the best among the wise. There is nothing more to be known by you. Your intellect has gained enough subtlety to acquire spiritual wisdom. However, you hold a tinge of diffidence that clouds the mirror of your mind. Just as Sri Shukadeva, the son of sage Vyasa, attained spiritual knowledge, so will you attain self-realization. And so, if you remember from the last videos, Lord Rama was expressing his dispassion and all of his feelings and thoughts that were coming up, and wanting to be guided on basically what to do, how to live in the world. And so he's asking the sages and saints that he is in audience of. And so they listened to him, and Sri Ramachandra is also another name for Lord Rama. So they were pleased with what they heard from him, and because of the divine qualities that he showed to them and that he expressed, those were the qualities that are seen in an excellent aspirant. And so there's that urge for liberation. The dispassion is developed, control over the senses, and qualities such like that. And so he's telling him that his intellect has gained enough subtlety to acquire spiritual wisdom. And so with subtle intellect, you're able to differentiate things from real and not real, truth and not truth, and the transient nature of worldly objects and the illusoriness of them. But he's pointing out to him the tinge of diffidence. And so diffidence is like a lack of confidence in yourself. And in this aspect, it's a lack of confidence in the wisdom that Lord Rama already is holding. And so he brings up Sri Shukadeva, who also went through this, was a aspirant and had all these divine qualities, but also had that tinge of diffidence, that doubt in his own wisdom. Sri Ramachandra asked, how did the son of great Vyasa attain peace through the instructions of his guru? Why was he unable to discover the truth of his existence by his innate wisdom? And so Lord Rama is asking, why was he not able to discover the truth of his existence, the truth of the self, and the truth of everything, if he already had all of this innate wisdom that he had gained through the subtle intellect? Sri Vishwamitra said, I will tell you the story of Sri Shukadeva. The sage Vyasa, who now appears like a mountain of black unguent seated by the side of the royal throne of your father, King Dasharatha, had a son known as Shukadeva. Even at an early age, Shukadeva developed dispassion towards the world, just like yourself, O Ramachandra. And so they are both similar in how they were young when they started to develop dispassion towards the world and worldly objects. And so this is where the story starts. And I'll show you, there's a little sketch drawing in the scripture. And that's of sage Shuka and King Janaka. And I don't know who sketched that. I'll have to look through the back. I think it lists the illustrations. By the force of constant reflection on the nature of the world, this mind became filled with viveka, discriminative knowledge. But still he was unable to find rest in the self. He was diffident with reference to his own wisdom. Therefore, he did not experience peace within himself. And so, with the force of constant reflection on the nature of the world, he developed discriminative knowledge. And so, that's one of the practices that we can work on every day. And we have all these opportunities and all these moments to sit and reflect on various things. Even if you're at work and you're eating like on your lunch break, You can sit and you can reflect on the nature of the world. If you're scrolling through the news, if you're a news reading person, and you can reflect on the nature of the world in that way, and thinking of the different qualities and behaviors of human beings, and how there's so many different variations and how it gets to be that way. You can reflect on the transient nature of your emotions and your feelings, or physical objects that you might own, like your house or your car, and just reflect, just sit and reflect. Just any moment that you can, just do it. It's a really good practice. And so that helps to develop the discriminative knowledge, is when you do this practice. One day he approached his father, sage Vyasa, and asked with great humility and devotion, "O adorable one, how does this world arise? How vast are the dimensions of this universe? How long will it continue to exist? Does this world process belong to the body, or to the mind, or to the senses, or to the pranas? Or does this world belong to the immutable self?" And so I want to point out great humility and devotion, because that's important when we approach gurus with our inquiries and our questions. We need to approach them with humility and devotion, not approach them with the intention of a debate or to prove a point or anything to do with the ego. So you have to put the ego away, put the ego on the back burner, and approach with great humility and devotion. And I know some people don't understand or like seeing or hearing it this way, but for me personally, it's a way of like, you're lower, like everyone's equal, but with the humility and devotion, it's more of what's the word, kind of, for me, it's more respect to elders, because I was raised with a lot of respect towards elders. And so it makes sense when approaching them. You don't approach your elders with a lot of ego or debating, because the elders, they do have a lot more wisdom and experience in things. And so it is important to give them time to talk and to listen to what they have to say. And so that is what's happening here. And he approached his father, sage Vyasa, and was asking him these questions. Sri Vyasa explained the nature of the self and of the universe in every detail, but Sri Shukadeva felt that he had already known all that teaching himself, and therefore that there was nothing more to receive from his father. His inward diffidence was not expelled. And so even approaching his father and continuing to ask these questions, that diffidence that he had within himself, that inward doubt of the wisdom that he had already attained and that he knew, he still had that doubt in him. And so the doubt hadn't been expelled, and he didn't trust in himself, in his own wisdom that he was gaining. And so he didn't see that there was anything more to learn from his father. And it wasn't necessarily in a like, oh, I already know that kind of manner. It was more because he had this wisdom, but he had doubt in himself and in his wisdom that he had gained, and he lacked the self-confidence in the wisdom. And so that small bit is what needed to be taken away from the equation, and it needed to be expelled. It needed to be worked on. Seeing this, sage Vyasa instructed Shuka to go to King Janaka to receive spiritual wisdom. And so basically his father is sending him to King Janaka to go and speak to him. Royal sage Janaka was well known for his lofty attainment of spiritual enlightenment. At this, Sri Shuka went to the palace of King Janaka and informed the latter of his arrival through a gatekeeper. And so Sri Shuka, he arrived at the gates and let him know, hey, I'm here to speak to King Janaka. I have some questions. King Janaka knew that Sri Shukadeva had rejected the teachings of his father due to lack of confidence in his own wisdom. So King Janaka was already aware of what was going on and what was happening. Therefore, any direct teaching given to him would not be effective. Thus reflecting, King Janaka ignored his message. And so King Janaka knew, if I let him in right now and we start a conversation and he starts asking me these questions, he's not going to learn anything. And so he sits there and he reflects like, okay, what can I do? What can I do to help kind of drive in this lesson and to drive out the diffidence that is needed to be like banished from the mind? So King Janaka ignored the message that Sri Shukadeva was sitting outside the gates. Sri Shukadeva had to wait for 7 days at the gate of the palace before receiving an audience with the king. So he made him wait for 7 days. After 7 days of patient waiting, Sri Shukadeva was brought into the royal palace. There he was entertained by various enjoyments of the world. But just as a soft breeze is unable to root out mighty trees that are deeply rooted, so the luxuries of the royal palace were unable to agitate the mind of Sri Shukadeva. And so King Janaka, he had all these entertainers and everything happening in the royal palace and lots of food and things to enjoy, lots of worldly things. So he was kind of testing him a bit to see if he would fall for these worldly objects. And so there's the analogy used, just as a soft breeze is unable to root out mighty trees that are deeply rooted, so the luxuries of the royal palace were unable to agitate the mind of Sri Shukadeva. And so because he already had this really strong dispassion and he was a very qualified aspirant, all these worldly luxuries and various enjoyments that were in the royal palace, they didn't bother him. They weren't a distraction. He didn't start seeking them out. It didn't attract his senses. Having proven that he was worthy of receiving spiritual wisdom, the devoted and respectful Sri Shukadeva was brought before the king. And so he was finally allowed to come before King Janaka because he proved that he was worthy of receiving the wisdom that was about to be given to him. King Janaka said, "You are blessed, O Shukadeva. You have attained the goal of all forms of self-effort. All enjoyments of the world are like straw before the bliss of the self. You have fulfilled all your desires by the force of self-realization. What more do you expect?" And so he's telling him, you attained the goal. You have put in every form of self-effort that you should on this path. And you've developed the extreme dispassion towards the worldly objects. And he fulfilled all of his desires by the force of self-realization. So what more is he wanting? Why is he here? Sri Shukadeva said, "O adorable Guru, how does this world arise? And how can it be eradicated from one's consciousness? Thus questioned, King Janaka gave the same instructions which Sri Shukadeva had received from his father, sage Vyasa. And so he's getting the same information, and he thought that he would get different information. Sri Shuka expressed himself, "O Guru, I had discovered the same truth by the force of my reflections. The same was taught by my father, sage Vyasa, and you have instructed me in the same reality. All scriptures are in accord with the same truth. In brief, this world arises from the mind, and it is destroyed by the cessation of the mind. Therefore, it is essenceless and illusory. I need to receive confirmation of this truth through your enlightening instructions." And so he's telling him the wisdom and his realization that he had about the world, but he's wanting that wisdom that he gained, he's wanting it to be confirmed by another person, by another guru, another sage. And so that's where that doubt, that diffidence is, where he's not trusting the wisdom that he had gained from all of his self-effort and all of his practices. King Janaka said, "Surely there is no other truth than what you have discovered by your reflective inquiry. This world is essentially the divine self, which is all-pervading, non-dual, pure consciousness. The Supreme Self has fallen into the bondage of the world process through its own samkalpas, mental thoughts. When it becomes freed from the samkalpas, it attains a state of liberation and freedom." And so, to re-explain this, so the world is essenceless and illusory. This world is illusory. And like Guruji would teach us, this world is like a dream, but it's like the longest dream that we're ever going to have compared to our short dreams that we might have at nighttime when we go to bed. And so, although the world and the worldly objects are essencelessness, they're illusory, they are not true, the world in its whole, in the bigger picture, the world is the divine self, which is all-pervading, non-dual, pure consciousness. And so it's because everything of the world, in the world, is of that divine, that it all comes from it. And so the Supreme Self has fallen into the bondage of the world process, so the process of birth and death due to our own samkalpas, our mental thoughts. And so that's where the cycle of birth and death, and we come back and basically do life over again until we figure it out. And it's due to our thoughts and those samkalpas. And so we have to become freed from them, because the samkalpas basically are holding the mind captive, it's in bondage. And so the mind needs to be freed of it, and it's this ignorance. And within all of this ignorance is our ego and our anger and passion, greed, lust, envy, all the demoniac qualities. And so through all those types of mental thoughts and that mental thinking, that's what needs to be eradicated. Those are the seeds that need to be burnt up. And so when that happens, the mind becomes freed and is able to attain the state of liberation. You are the best among the aspirants. You have known the highest truth of existence. You have developed dispassion towards all objects of the world. though still very young, you have become detached from the enjoyments of the world. Your father, Sri Vyasa, is the ocean of wisdom, but your wisdom excels even your father's. I deem myself highly privileged to be your guru. And so King Janaka is telling him that he understands, he knows the highest truth of existence. He's developed the divine qualities, even though he is very young, and he was learning from his father, Sri Vyasa. And the wisdom he's attained at such a young age, in the words of King Janaka, has put him, I guess, like in a higher sense, like a higher state of mind, because he's excelled his father. And so King Janaka is saying that he's very highly privileged to be his guru, to be his teacher, to be teaching him and guiding him through this wisdom that he has gained. Thus instructed by King Janaka, Sri Shukadeva became free from inner diffidence. He became fully enlightened. All grief, restlessness, and agitation vanished from his mind. Surrounded by gods, Sri Shuka entered into samadhi, superconsciousness, on the heights of the Meru Mountains. After enjoying samadhi for 10,000 years, he passed on into Videha Mukti, disembodied liberation. With the destruction of worldly attachment and its cause, ignorance, Sri Shukadeva merged himself in the absolute reality Brahman, even as a drop of water merges itself in the vast ocean. And so that's a really lovely ending to the story. And we still have a little time, but I'll save the next section for next week. And so I liked this story that was being told about King Janaka and Shukadeva, because as aspirants on this path and devotees and disciples, everyone learns differently and at your own pace, your own speed, because everyone lives a different worldly life. You go through different things, different experiences. Everyone has different questions regarding the scriptures. And one thing that I have realized on this path is the inward diffidence, where you can experience that inward diffidence, that inward doubt in what you're realizing or what you're learning, the information, the wisdom that you're gaining. And it's like you know the truth, but you're doubting yourself in what you've realized, and so then you're looking for confirmation from your guru or another teacher. And then that's where your guru is going to point out, okay, there's a bit of like a lack of self-confidence in yourself, and that's something that needs to be worked on. Gaining more confidence and more understanding. And so that's why it's a journey. It's a long journey, and it's a bumpy path. You can go a really long time. Just like Sri Shukadeva and Lord Rama, you gain wisdom no matter what age you are. You could be young, you could be middle-aged, you could be an elder, and you can still have this doubt and this kind of agitation and restlessness happening in the mind, even though you might have all this knowledge. And so it's important that when we gain wisdom and we gain knowledge from our practices, from our experiences in meditation, that we apply these things to daily life, because these things are going to help us. And that's where the scriptures is like a guidebook to life. And everything in it is here for us to apply and to take to heart. And it spells out. It literally spells out and teaches us what to do and what not to do. And so it was a really good story, and it brought up different topics, which I liked, where the mind is in bondage, because our mind can be our best friend and our mind can be the enemy, all due to how our thoughts are and what we're thinking, because it's really easy to go down the rabbit hole into the world of negativity. And I do that myself still sometimes. You get overly frustrated with things because you might be really tired or you don't feel good. You might get angry at something and you just kind of snowball, and you have a bad day, even though it's not a bad day. You're just having some negative feelings, and instead of focusing more on the transient nature of those feelings, you start dwelling on them. And so then that kind of determines how our day is going to go. And so we have that power over the mind. We just have to tap into it. And it brings up the worldly attachments that we have to work on destroying, in a sense. And so that's working on not being attached to the worldly objects and not being attached to relationships, family members, wealth, money, titles at work, or statuses that you hold at work, anything like that. Because all of these things are temporary. You might have them, your whole worldly embodiment while you're here. You might not. They might go away. And when we're attached to things, in that attachment, it's gonna carry frustration and stress and anger. So like, if someone's really, really attached to their car, they have a really nice car, and then they get in a car wreck, or someone keys the side of the car, or a window breaks on the car, they can feel like their whole world just flipped upside down. And that it could make them really, really angry, really frustrated, really stressed out. And yes, it's a challenging situation to navigate and figure out. But when the attachment is really strong, those other emotions are going to be very strong. And those are going to be overpowering the mind. And when the mind is agitated so much, the mind actually cannot think straight. Your intellect is really clouded. Your judgment can be clouded. And so it's important to work on those things. And so overall, it was a really good story, and I hope y'all enjoyed it. Apologies for, again, my appearance and everything, with stuff hanging from my head. And we'll continue next week. We'll start on section 2, where Sage Vishwamitra requests Sage Vasishtha to instruct Sri Ramachandra. So it's almost like a tongue twister. That's a mouthful of words. So, divine blessings to everybody here. And I'll go through the comments. Try to get my mouse to work. Okay, there we go. Let's see. It's all good. Sounding good. Om Tat Sat, Shobna Ji. Divine blessings. Divine blessings, Guru Ma. I hope you are feeling a bit better. Prayers for your healing and getting good rest. Thank you, Miraji. My neurologists are very, very, very good. Divine blessings, Miraji. When you mentioned reflecting on the nature of the world, and for example, our house, it made me think about a program about an English author, Jane Austen, that I watched recently. Her childhood home, which she and her sisters loved dearly, is now totally gone. All they could do to illustrate what it looked like was to draw the outlines of the house and the rooms on the ground for us to see. All will one day be gone. All we have, etc. It's worth remembering. Yes. I love to look at that. That sounds very interesting. But yeah, reflecting on the nature of things is really important. It can be challenging for people sometimes. And then other people that aren't on the spiritual path can, like in my personal experience, when I started talking about these things with other people, they just thought I was being very negative. And so it can be challenging, especially when you get to family and relationships. And they're hard. They are hard ones to work through. And our attachments. And that's something we have those discussions in our house quite frequently while going through things. And we currently have a whole bunch of bins for donations downstairs, and looking at it, and it was just like shaking my head, like, why was I attached to these things for so long? What am I gonna do with all this stuff? It was pretty ridiculous, the amount of random things that I was holding on to, because that's still a process for me. Is like my main attachment is books, and like physical books. Everything else I can kind of like care less about. I'm just a real book person. But that's something I think about often, is what would happen if like the house caught fire and everything in the house was destroyed, and what feelings and emotions I would go through, and I would have to work through what state of mind I would be in an event like that. Yes, Miraji. Yes, books, growing up, books was a very, very big deal with my family, like constantly going to the library and growing up in a house full of books. And so my house is currently full of books, and then I homeschooled both of my children, and so that was like many, many years worth of academic books. And then I've got I still have college textbooks and all sorts of stuff. And so it'll now be going to the community, to people that can use it. Some of the stuff is just weird, like hanging on to algebra textbooks makes no sense. But that's where, like, attachments are weird. Like, they can be really weird. It can be sometimes the smallest things that you know for a fact you're never going to use again. There's no point in keeping it. It just takes up space. It's more stuff to clean. Yeah, so that's one thing that I've always had to work on. Thank you, Shobna G. Divine blessings. And thank you, Mira G, for the compliments. I feel a bit disheveled. Like, I get this off tomorrow, and today was the first day of relief from the electrodes. There's some on my forehead, like underneath all the gauze, and it's caused a lot of pain. And then it's really, really itchy. And yeah, it's been a challenge. It's been a really, really big challenge. And then being hooked up to a backpack with a recorder, that's what this is connected to. And then that is then connected to another backpack that has a giant tablet in it. And then that is then connected to a camera, which my doctors have been watching me on camera for the past couple of days. Yes, thank you, Guru Ma. May we all be blessed with healing. I know there's many of us going through health challenges, all sorts of challenges, and prayers for healing for everybody and peace for everybody, and finding that stillness in our hearts and in our mind again. I think we all need it right now. And my prayers are always with everybody. Seriously, they're with everybody through everything. And yes, tomorrow, Mystery of the Soul Satsanga with Guru Ma, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. So please hop on Facebook Live and support Guru Ma for the memorial for Kailashi Guruji, Swami Nikhilananda. And I will hop off here and let y'all go. It's almost 9 o'clock. Divine blessings, everyone. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.